Okay, good evening, everybody. We should be live. Um, Again, it was nice to see everybody for a quick minute. The tiles are dark. I guess that's okay. Although I hope to the seniors in the room, you saw the handbook that recently went out that you will need to be on camera starting September 8th, I guess, when school starts. But for the purposes of tonight, I think we'll roll with it. On behalf of the counseling department, we, thank you for taking some time away from the last days of summer. Usually we would host this evening in September when school starts. However, given the uniqueness of the upcoming school year, we thought it was important to share some sort of information with you before school starts, particularly as it relates to, your application and visiting schools in the building. And, so we have some slides, all the counselors are here, and we hope to address some questions that may be on your mind. I think for the purposes of just moving through things, we'll go through the slides and then leave a few minutes at the end for some Q&A. If you want to ask the question, through voice or through chat, that's your call, but we'll definitely stay on to answer any questions you have. So I'm going to play this presentation. Everybody can see the screen? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's hard to get feedback when all the tiles are dark. Okay, just to go through a little bit about the agenda, we thought it would be important just to take an extra minute to talk about the schedule, just given its, again, uniqueness. Spend a few minutes about the classroom that we've set up for the seniors, the virtual visits that will be taking place from the college representatives, a brief discussion about Common App as it relates to the COVID question and inviting your advisor, which is going to be us, the counselors, a minute about standardized testing, and then just like some foreshadowing and some action steps to take following tonight. So the schedule is, different, and it's especially different for this first week of school. So this hopefully isn't new news to you, but just in case it is, I'll spend a second covering what the first week of school is going to be. It's going to be a half day for Tuesday through Friday, starting September 8th. A few things to note, and this is going to be true for the year as a whole, at least in the beginning. Extra help will be virtual. So, links to that, I suppose, will come out once the teachers are back in the building starting next week. For those of you that are transition leaders, there's a meeting on Monday. I believe that's the 31st at 3 o'clock. Mm-hmm. Hopefully you've received a link for that. But in terms of your first meeting with freshmen, that's going to be Tuesday, September 8th in the morning at 8 to 8:30. And then again on the 31st, you will have access to your schedule through Infinite Campus. And then again on the 31st, Ms. Meyer will send an email and let you know which group you're in, whether that's group 1 and group 2. And then you'll just, kind of follow the corresponding schedule as it relates to being in the building or distance. And for those of you that are fully distanced, you just, stay in place where you are at home or wherever you happen to be for the entirety of the school day. That transition is going to be early the first week, and it's going to be later. I'm just going to change the slide. It's going to be later in the day once the school year, I guess, really picks up or starts a normal schedule to whatever extent this is normal. You may have seen there's, truthfully, I'm not even sure that I know what type of food services are going to be in the cafeteria, but it will be very, very limited. And I think given the elementary and middle school uses of the cafeteria, we're asking that high school students do not go to the cafeteria. We're recommending that you bring in water with you. You know, if you take a look, if you're in group 1, and we're just focusing on day 5, if you're group 1, you're really only in school from 8:30 to 11:20. So, you know, the need and the days of running down to the caf to get chicken fingers or cookies or whatever other goodies you would go down to get, unfortunately are going to be over for a little bit. But also I think maybe just not needed given the short amount of time you're in the building. And then that transition between the 2 groups is going to be when we're, you know, I guess basically encouraging you to have some lunch. And the second group comes in for D block and EF block. And then it's just going to cycle through, and we're going to do this for a few weeks and assess how things are going, with the intention of slowly phasing in more students, assuming that everything runs smoothly. So, you know, that part is a little bit of a wait and see, but, you know, I will say, you know, district administrators, I mean, we've spent all of the summer planning for the start of school. So we hope that, we are hoping for the best. We're hoping for the best. And we're hoping that you as seniors and you as students are going to be able to adhere to whatever guidelines are in place in terms of masks and distancing, so that we can get more people into the building and get as close to normal life back as possible, as quick as possible. But again, keeping everybody's well-being and safety first. So I think Alyssa, you're up.
Yeah, so nice to meet everyone first and foremost, and I really want to just say thank you so much for the warm welcome. It's been so nice getting to work with many of you this summer, and I'm so excited to be part of the Bronxville community. So tonight, my job is to address a bit about how we're using our Google Classroom guidance page. Before I do this, on the slide, you're going to see the code to access the Google Classroom. And if you could all take out your device and actually enter the code you see in front of you, if you haven't already done so, that would be great. We really want to make sure that you're all good to go before the start of the school year. So I'm going to pause for just a bit to give you all the opportunity to enter that access code. Okay. So if you weren't able to do it in that time, obviously the slides will be shared and you see the code below. But just to provide you with a little bit of context, so as a guidance team, we're providing students with the most up-to-date information regarding changes in the application process and just general information via this Google Classroom. And the goal is to draw attention to different steps in the process that are timely. You know, students can oftentimes feel overwhelmed and just inundated by the variety of different tasks inherent in this process. So this is going to help streamline it a little bit. Already on the Google Classroom, you'll see links and videos highlighting how to add an advisor to the Common App which Ms. H is going to speak about in a moment, how to invite teachers as recommenders in Naviance, different organizational resources, and a lot more. So as we move through the fall, we're going to continue to post information that's going to help guide you through this process as smoothly as possible. And so for this reason, now more than ever, it's going to be important for you to turn on notifications and check your emails. You're not only going to be getting updates from guidance, but you're also going to be receiving important updates from colleges that you're applying to. So it's going to be hugely important that you are up to date and checking your emails for sure. And as always, alongside the Google Classroom page, we encourage all students to reach out to their counselors for individual questions, assistance, whatever, because this can be a tricky process. But all in all, we're really all looking forward to a great school year ahead. And in the days to come, looking forward to meeting you face to face. And now I believe Ms. Cohen is going to dive into information regarding virtual college visits.
Hi, everyone. It's nice to see you. And we are all looking forward to being back in the building. We've missed you very much. I'm here to talk a bit about virtual visits, which is the way that we're going to be having our liaisons from the different colleges and universities make our contacts with our seniors this year. Historically, we've been blessed to have many representatives eager to visit our campus, and this year it will be no different. Just the visits are going to be taking a different form, as these visits will be virtual. And whether you are in A group or B group, we are lucky because you will be able to participate in these visits. We will be posting all of these visits on a schedule on Naviance. So another way that it's very important to stay active in your Naviance account and be checking that schedule. You will sign up via Naviance. You will be responsible to notify your teacher of what schedule what of the class that you're in at that time. So they will expect that you will be either exiting the Zoom if you are not in school on that day, or physically exiting the classroom if you are not, if you are in class on that day, or and if you are in class, we in the counseling office will be finding a location. We will let you know where to go so you can participate in the Zoom, and we will have either Chromebooks or it will be in a computer lab, whatever. You will know where to go. And those of you who will be learning remotely that day will participate from home, and our representative will lead through the same kind of visit they would had they been in person, but it will just be virtual, specifically geared for Bronxville students, where you can address your questions and have that intimate small group experience with our representative from whatever college or university it is at that time. So keep on the lookout at that schedule so you can be up to date with what representatives we will have coming.
All right, so this is me. I'm Miss Hassan Jaikai. You can call me Miss H for short because I know my last name is really tricky. I don't have any of you guys on my caseload, but I am planning on attending a bunch of meetings with Mrs. Abaticola's students alongside her. But just to dive into the Common Application briefly, as Ms. Zelikoff was saying, there's a video on the Google Classroom that goes step by step on how to invite an advisor. So make sure you're adding your counselor, your designated counselor, as your advisor on the Common App, because this will allow us to see your application without us having to touch your computer or something like that. It'll be a lot more sanitary and just a lot easier for us to access your application and kind of review it before you go off and send it to the college, and make sure that the information is accurate and kind of up to date. We will get an email notification when you invite us. Another important part of the Common Application that's different this school year is the additional information tab about COVID-19 specifically. So it is completely optional whether you want to share anything or not. It is a maximum of 250 words, so it's very short. You're not writing a long essay. And really, the only reason why I would suggest you do write something for the COVID-19 is if you've been impacted in a way that's kind of unique. You know, obviously everyone at Bronxville was taking classes remotely, and schools across the country have been in the same situation. So that wouldn't really warrant, you know, an essay. However, if, say, you had difficulty with internet access, it was kind of spotty, or you had to take care of, say, a sick parent or sick grandparent, things like that, I think that would really warrant an essay. But regardless, if you're not sure of whether or not you think it's right for you to fill out that essay, please speak to your counselor, and they'll be able to kind of guide you in that response and whether or not it's appropriate to respond to that question. Because the point of it is really to add context to your application. And I believe Mrs. Abaticola is next, and she's going to talk to you about testing.
Yeah, I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about standardized testing, specifically geared towards a test optional aspect of testing. So test optional means that the student can decide from the exams they've taken or not taken whether or not to report to the colleges and universities their test results. And in the past, test optional has been around, actually around 2004 or 5. A few colleges began to identify themselves as being test optional, which meant that students did not have to report their scores to them. And some of these colleges created another criteria. They had students send in a paper or a graded essay. They also established some grade point average cutoffs. So students who wanted to not send their test scores had to fulfill these other characteristics. So by 2019, there were about 500 colleges that identified themselves as test optional. As of last week, however, as the slide indicates, 63%, and it's probably up to 65% by today, of the total number of colleges and universities recognized by the Department of Education will not require ACT or SAT scores from all or many applicants in the upcoming cycle. So COVID-19 interrupted the testing season for many of you. I recall that many students were preparing to take that test the weekend that we closed school, and all of the test centers, one after another, began to announce test closure, and that was really devastating. So the colleges, and it continued throughout the spring, as you know. So the colleges recognized this, and they began to consider the implications of the canceled test scores and the implications on students. And some of the colleges decided that that the test optional opportunity would help students de-stress the whole process, which is a great rationale for doing this. So as we said, so almost 65% of the colleges in the United States now have the test optional opportunity. So how does this relate to you as college applicants for this year? If you have not taken a test, obviously you have nothing to lose. And I know many of you have registered for the in-school administration of the SAT on September 23rd, or the in-school administration of the ACT on October 6th. And what do you do when the results come in? If this is your first test, then you don't know what to expect, well, you have nothing to lose. If you have already taken a test and you're taking this as your second test, you, again, have nothing to lose because you now have a score to compare your first test administration. I know that seniors at Bronxville traditionally carry a really demanding course load. So the decision about taking subsequent test administrations versus devoting the time and energy needed to do a good job with your coursework is really something that you need to consider very carefully. So if your scores don't match your expectation, what do you do? Here we have test optional. The colleges recognize that you may not have had the opportunity to take another test, that the conditions were such that your tests are not going to be considered. So in considering that, if it's your second round, again, if your score is higher, fine, you can report that. If not, you don't have to report it. But what's important to compare, if you do have a score that you feel is in the range of the accepted students of that school, then by all means, you should report the score, okay? Now, the exception to using test optional might be if you are looking for a scholarship, a merit scholarship, or applying for financial aid. It is extremely important that you check the individual college's website to determine whether or not they are requiring your scores to identify whether or not you could be the recipient of a scholarship that they're offering, or financial aid, for example. I read that if you're a student considering applying to schools as a Division I athlete, the NCAA has removed that testing requirement for the students from this year. So you can fully qualify if you don't have a test score to offer, and you are an athlete who is seeking to be recruited for Division I. So again, very important to consult the individual websites. So now, if you don't report your score, you have to understand this, that all the other parts of your application are going to be considered in a very strong way. So your application, your essays, teacher recommendations, the counselor recommendation, activities and awards, the alumni or representative interview that you go into. So all of these are going to be valued a little higher when there are no test scores. So what does this mean? This means, as was previously said, that your application must be perfect. So sharing it with your counselor is really going to assist you, because we might pick up a misspelling that 5 people who've already read your application would not see. If your grammar might be, if you might have misused singular or plural, that's another reason why we ask you to allow your counselor to read the draft of your application. Also, if you have another school-specific application than the Common App, some colleges have their own application. Georgetown, for example, some of the art schools have their own application. By all means, you could email a draft to us, and we will likewise review that. The only thing that I've neglected to mention regarding scores is, along with all of those criteria that are being considered, many of our students are taking AP exams these years and have very strong AP scores. So if you have strong AP scores, self-reporting them on your Common App might be a good idea, because that would be a documentation for you that you've excelled in a particular area. So consider test optional, check out each college website to be sure that if test optional is for you, that you're not going to miss out on any scholarships or financial aid that the colleges may require. All right.
All right. Kind of get into the end. So as I mentioned in the beginning, historically, we would have this post-high school planning night in September. And as you can see from the few calendar dates in front of you, we're still having that. As juniors, most of you did plenty of preparation and research, and as parents, the same for you. And as it relates to applying to college, and then this pandemic broke out, and pretty much college admissions kind of changed. And so everything you sort of thought you knew, you're now having to kind of adapt in this new lens with virtual visits, test optional. What does that all mean? And I'm sure there are many other questions that you have. And so for our September 14th evening, we've invited the Dean of Admissions at UVA to join us. I think leading up to that date, I'll send out an email to the students and the parents, just seeing if you have any questions in advance, because I think following our discussion with Dean Roberts, we'll still meet as a counselor and counselees in breakout rooms to talk about, more specific things with your counselor. So, mark your calendar for that. I think, Greg Roberts is, he's a well-respected individual in higher education. And I felt like specifically asking him to join us would go a long way given his, reputation of just being honest and straightforward. I'm not going to go through the rest of the calendar events, but I wanted you all to see that there's, a lot in store for September and October. A few things that I will mention. If you are applying early decision or early action and the college happens to have a November 15th deadline, please let your counselor know by September 30th, if not sooner. If you're applying early decision or early action for a November 1st deadline, please let your counselor know by October 15th, if not sooner, to give us time to prepare things. And then maybe lastly, on the 12th of November, we did this last year in the cafeteria in case some of you were there. We're going to do another college admissions case study event. The University of Chicago is going to help us for this event, obviously virtual, or maybe not obviously, but it will be virtual. And I think even maybe more so now than ever with this idea and this possibility of test optional for many of you, I think that will be a great experience. Chicago's been test optional for a few years. And with many of you or some of you applying to school as test optional will be a nice way to see what the admissions process will be like firsthand without the introduction of test scores. And then just on the right, a few things to do following tonight's meeting. Ultimately, in any year, staying organized is probably paramount in this process. On the Google Classroom, we've actually made a spreadsheet for you to use. Just make a copy of it if you save it to your drive, where you can start putting in deadlines and things that you've submitted and kind of keep track. This is somewhat of a big project, if you will, and you want to make sure that you have all the pieces moving in the right direction and being mindful of the deadlines that are associated with those pieces. As Ms. Cohen spoke about, the virtual visits will happen. We need you to sign up so we can prepare a space for those of you that are in the building to sit outside of the classroom. So please sign up in advance. Invite us on the Common App, share your essay and essays with us, and obviously reach out to us with any questions you have along the way. I would say we are allowed to have, we can have, meetings in person, socially distanced with masks on, but parents, as I'm sure you're well aware, are not going to be allowed in the building for the foreseeable future. So we will, send Zoom links to anybody that wants to, connect with us while your student is in the building, virtually to join that meeting. So we all just need to, just kind of keep in communication. Communication is just key. We are all here, which is as evidence of a, kind of 7 o'clock on a Thursday. We're here to support you. It may seem like this is not going to be easy, but I know even for the new counselors who dealt with, counseling remotely during the pandemic at their previous institutions, like, believe it or not, I think our role in the school building actually works quite well over Zoom, and we're able to do as much as we can in the building, just absence of, kind of that human interaction, which is going to be missed, quite honestly, but such is life for the moment. I am going to stop the sharing. There might be some questions in the chat. I'm happy to, or we're happy to answer any questions you may have. Again, thank you all for taking some time out of your last few days of summer. We look forward to seeing you in the building with masks on, 6 feet apart from everybody. And I'm going to shut this off and go to the chat box. Okay. All right. I guess I'm going to start, and then everybody else in the department, if anybody wants to jump in, please do. So, okay, so there's a question from Avalon about the deferred admissions and the gap year. Students that are entering college that chose to defer, given the obvious reasons, and how that's going to impact the class of 2021. So this was talked about in our field and in college admissions, the college admission world, a lot in May and June. And I think it since has gone down, and I feel like it's kind of poking its head back up amongst sort of the industry publications that I follow. I was actually on a webinar today with an institution in the Midwest that said, each year they get about 25 requests for a gap year, and this year they received, I don't know, something like 60 or something like that. And so I think generally speaking, and I think I read something about Harvard, maybe it was 10 or 20% elected to take a gap year. Look, I think there's a few different ways to look at this. One, this information, whether it's happening or not, you have no control over. You do have control over your classes, your grades, what you're doing with your free time, how you're taking care of yourself, how you're preparing. You have control over certain things in this process. And really, if you start diving down this rabbit hole of like how many students at my first choice school have chosen to take in a gap year, and how is that going to impact my chances of you're really gonna spin yourself into I guess a tornado. I wouldn't get too caught up in that. I mean, I will say that when you all and counselors will be there as well, and I know I will be asking some representatives, you can ask them during these visits, did a lot of students take a gap year? Is that going to impact our chances? Because the reality is it's going to vary from institution to institution, right? If the numbers that is being publicized from Harvard are true and it's 20%, like, yeah, it might impact that institution. But the other side of this coin is there are institutions where not enough students have come, right? They have empty rooms in their dormitories and are going to need students from the class of 2021 more so now than ever. So there's two sides to this coin. Each institution is going to be, possibly net neutral or on one or the other side. It's impossible to anticipate or predict. It's really hard to know the answer. And so, again, I would encourage you to, kind of go through this a little bit with blinders on and focus on what you have control over, and leave the sort of the numbers out of it, because otherwise you might end up not applying somewhere where you maybe could have gotten into because they said they had, a 50% increase, but that 50% increase could be 15 people. So again, I just caution you to that whole thing. And I also will make sure to ask Greg Roberts on the 14th for his take on that. And you can hear from that institution, their perspective, and what he's hearing from other deans around the country that he interacts with. Anybody else want to chime in on that from the counseling department?
I guess just quick, I was in that same webinar as Mr. Kind, and they mentioned this school particularly, so again, it's going to vary between schools, that summer melt was actually a lot less than what they thought it was going to be, meaning that they thought, kids were going to drop off like, oh, I'm coming to the school, but actually I'm not going to. They actually saw less of that than expected. So I don't know. I would just say, again, reiterate what Mr. Kind is saying, to really just not focus so much on that, even though I know it's hard not to, and really just focus on making your application as strong as it can be, and that these schools are really the schools that you envision yourself attending.
Yeah, I would echo that, what you said, Sienna, about, you know, the core values and the mission of the school and what they're looking for and the strength of the programs. The schools are still the same and you are still you. You have to remember that. We're looking for that fit. So stick with that and let that be your North Star, and that will guide you. You know, there's also that flip side. I've heard people say, well, now that we don't have as many international students coming, you know, maybe that'll help us. So, you know, we can't let ourselves get caught up in that. You know, think about who you are, think about where you fit, think about what you want, and that's the best we can do now. So I think Aaron's points, you know, those were great points.
Right. Somebody asked about the standardized tests that we're administering in school. So, you know, first and foremost, these are planned to happen as long as, you know, we're able to have people in the building, which, you know, we're obviously hoping that that is still the case come October at least, and definitely in September. So it's going to be in accordance with, you know, social distancing guidelines. Desks will be 6 feet apart. You'll be expected to wear your mask. It's just something that's for Bronxville students. It's no different than taking the test at a national test center, other than we're doing the registration and we're doing the administration, and it's happening during the school day. But in terms of, like, you know, policies and procedures and expectations, it's all going to be the same. So, you know, prepare accordingly. And again, we'll be sharing more information as it gets closer to the 23rd and the 6th of October for those of you that have signed up for those 2 tests. Yeah, so I don't, there's kind of a follow-up question to the testing. If the school, I think, if the school is open and school is in session on September 23rd, then we will be administering the test. If for some reason the school is not open and school students are not in session on leading up to the 23rd or on the 23rd, we will not be administering that test. And the same holds true for October's ACT exam. So, you know, I'm hoping that this happens. It's taken a lot of legwork from the department to put together. And so we are hoping to administer it. We're also, it doesn't apply to the seniors. We're hoping to administer the PSAT. Again, the school needs to be open. We need to be able to, you know, gather and things of that nature. So this is all very kind of safety dependent, for lack of a better expression. So there was a question that was just sent to me privately about recommendation letters. So I'm just gonna encourage that student or parent to reach out to their counselor, because it may or may not apply to everybody, and I'm not gonna go on about that. Yeah, so in terms of how many colleges you could apply to, there's no limit. We're not putting any limits, but in terms of how many you should be, I think, you know, you should have that conversation with your counselor, you know, because there's a variety of factors that could suggest you should apply to more, and there's a variety of factors that, you know, could support applying to less. So it's really student specific and situation driven. So definitely contact your counselor about that. Right. I guess that's the natural ending to the meeting. If you're a transition leader, please be on that meeting on Monday at 3 o'clock. I will be sending out this recording along with the slides and a few other links tomorrow. You know, maybe next time we can get everybody's faces on these tiles, but you know, we're still kind of in summer mode, so we'll give a pass. But you know, I hope this helps some of you just kind of bring things down and give you some, you know, like kind of a runway to go forward as we, you know, start to reopen the building. You know, we are here for you. Some things look like they have changed in college admissions, but at the end of the day, you know, it's your application, your essay, your recommendation letters. It's a lot of it's still the same. So we've all been doing this for quite some time, and we're prepared for Zoom visits. We're prepared for Zoom admission celebrations and Zoom non-admission conversations as well, if need be. So we're here for you. We're going to support you. We'll get through this together. There's, you know, you're in good hands. If anybody else wants to say any closing words, feel free to chime in. But it was, you know, thank you all for joining us.
Looking forward to see you all soon.
See you soon.